So I want to kind of show some of you other techs out there that may run into this issue here. 17 up. If you have a 17 and 18 F150 and you get clicking, grinding noise coming from the IWEs, they want you to reprogram the TCCM first and then redrive the vehicle, because it puts a new strategy in the TCCM that on startup you won't have ground to the IWE solenoid. You need to drive the vehicle at least a half a mile so this vacuum reservoir fills up with enough vacuum to disengage the IWEs, so you'll get four-wheel drive almost for that full first half mile, and then it'll go away. You won't have ground here. You'll test for power and ground, you'll have power, but it'll be something weird like 2.0 volts on the return side, the control side. I'm going to show you what it looks like now after I've driven the vehicle 8 miles. This is a 20 model. The programming's already in there. When you first start it up, this circuit is not going to have ground. Now let me show you after driving at 8 miles what it looks like testing the control side. So I've got the blue and brown wire back probed. See, I've got 0.7 volts coming back. That's because the control circuit is complete right now. Now watch what happens when I unplug it. Be careful with those connectors because you could break them. So it's disconnected right now. I've got ground. Now watch what happens when I shut the key off and turn it back on. Every key cycle it resets. Key off, key back on. I've got ground. Remember I told you on key on, or I didn't tell you, but on key on you'll have ground, but as soon as it starts you won't have it. Now you see it's still green for ground. Now watch what happens when I start the truck. It went away. Now it has voltage on that ground pin. You need to drive this vehicle a half mile before it will give you ground back on that circuit, because it wants to make sure there's sufficient vacuum to release the IWEs. So you will be in four-wheel drive. Every time you turn the key off and turn it back on, it automatically results to, no matter what mode you're in, you will be in four-wheel drive for the first half mile of that run, and then it will disengage the four-wheel drive and give you two once sufficient vacuum has been reached. That's a new operating strategy to protect the IWEs and make sure there's sufficient vacuum there so you don't have them chattering and chewing up the back of the wheel bearing teeth and the IWE teeth, the engagement ring. So that's how the system works. You may ask, why are you telling us this? What happened to you? If you haven't seen the previous video, I was helping another senior tech that I thought read the literature. I thought he knew what was going on, but he didn't quite understand how the new system worked. And he didn't know that in June of 22, they updated the TSB for the IWE chattering and clicking. There's a big bold blue message right in the center of it that says, if you're dealing with chattering and clicking coming from the IWEs, your four-wheel drive hubs in the front, and you have a 17 to 18 model, reprogram to TCCM. 19 and 20 already have the update in them. You need to drive the vehicle for at least a half mile every single key cycle before you will get two-wheel drive. It's stuck at four-wheel drive for the first half mile until it builds up sufficient vacuum to properly release the IWEs. To properly vacuum pull away the IWE engagement from the back of your wheel bearing. That drives the CV axle, because the CV axle is splined to the wheel bearing. The wheel bearing has a spline on the back of it that engages with the IWE, which is controlled by the solenoid via the TCCM and the footwell over here. It's a flat panel down on the ground. And driver control. You need to drive a half mile before you can even check for proper power and ground. As long as the system's operating correctly, you'll have four-wheel drive for the first half mile if you're in two-wheel drive, and then it will disengage. So the other tech was trying to troubleshoot something without understanding the system until I got to it last night after I spent hours thinking that he was right. And I looked into it myself because 2 other people had mentioned to me, did you read the TSB? Did you see the new criteria, the new update, the new operating strategy? You might want to go back and look at that because you might be sending yourself the wrong direction. And sure enough, those guys were right. After I did some studying, I looked at the system. I figured out the update was kind of slipped in that TSB, that technical service bulletin, without actually telling us in June. So most of us didn't even know. And now you do. Thanks, guys. Be blessed.